Hey everyone, welcome to Business Unchained, where entrepreneurs and business owners come together to power up on their journey to greatness.
Bobby Masha is the founder and CEO of Greenridge Wealth Planning. All opinions expressed by Bobby and his guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinion of Greenridge Wealth Planning. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any financial decisions. Clients of Greenridge Wealth Planning may maintain positions in any securities discussed in this podcast.
If we were to kind of peel back, right?
Yep.
You've got quite a resume. You spent time on Wall Street. You have your CPA. You have your law degree. You run a successful company. Talk to me a little bit about this life is too short guy. What are the elements? Like, obviously had some building blocks and pivot points where you said, you know what? I'm going to go from Wall Street to get my CPA. I'm going to go for my my law degree at Penn. I'm going to go and write this book, start speaking. Talk to me about the path that you kind of traveled.
So it was a marathon. It wasn't a sprint. It was a marathon that I never could have imagined from the beginning. And there wasn't a grand plan. When I look back and I talk to young people now about their planning their career and what they're studying in college and where they're going to end up, I tell them, look at me. I sort of stumbled into college. And by that, I mean, my dad kind of sort of muddled through night school, but he was never really an academic. He struggled, quite frankly. My mom never went to college. I had
What was Dad's
some
profession?
guidance. Dad was an electrical engineer.
Okay.
I was an electrical engineer. Mom was a teacher's assistant. I had some guidance, but it wasn't like I grew up in a family of academics and from day one, everyone was sort of, all right, here are the 5 colleges.
You knew your path.
I had no idea.
No
in
idea.
fact, I can't quite remember, but if I told you the colleges I applied to, you would be cross-eyed. You'd look at me like, the heck are you talking about? I mean, I literally picked out, I was like, I applied to Johns Hopkins. I got in. I was very excited. I applied to Cornell. I applied to Rutgers. I applied to American. I don't even remember all of them, but there was no, if you
No
ask
rhyme
me,
or reason.
Right. You're like, why'd you apply? I don't know.
Look cool.
Right. That's exactly right. So I stumbled into Rutgers. It was 3 miles from my house. I didn't know a whole lot about it. I got there. It was the right price for me at the time. It made sense in terms of the cost. And when I got there, I was like, maybe I'll go to law school. Literally, I got there and I didn't even fully understand what that concept was, but it seemed like I kind of like politics. I kind of like debating. I love debating. So I'm like, maybe I'll go to law school. So I get to Rutgers and I start studying political science. And about a semester or 2 in, I completely accidentally, life is a series of accidents. I am flipping through the course catalogs. And now it's 1992 and you literally have a paper catalog.
Yep.
And I stumble onto a paragraph or two about a joint BA MBA that Rutgers has. I'm like, that's
Kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, how does that work? So I look at it and it's 3 years as an undergrad and then 2 years as a grad student. Interesting. I flip the page. The next page talks about a 14-month accelerated MBA. Somehow a light bulb goes off, and I have no idea how. Again, life is a series of accidents and things that just happen. A light bulb goes off, and I'm like, I wonder if I could take that 14-month MBA and do it after 3 years of undergrad instead of doing the 3-2. I'll do 3 years and 14 months. I go talk to the dean, and you would think I was asking for a PhD in nuclear physics. Their eyes were like, wait, hold on. How would this work? What would you pay? And where would you live? And who would bill you? And what school would you be? I'm like, I don't know, but you have a 14-month program, and you say you could do a 3 and 2. And by the way, the credits are the same. So I'm not trying to cut credits. Instead of just doing it over 2 years, I'm going to do it over 14 months. So eventually we make that work. And there were some speed bumps along the way. I assure you, at one point, I was living in a dorm and they're like, oh, you're a graduate student now. I'm not sure you could live here anymore. But I ended up doing the basically in 4 years, I did my BA and MBA. There wasn't a grand plan. Again, I didn't arrive at Rutgers like, all right, we're going to do this 4 years. It's like, all right, I stumbled into it. I did it. I liked school. I actually thrived in school. I enjoyed the academic environment. And then I was thinking when I was in my MBA program, I'll go to law school. Doing the 14-month intensive MBA I needed a little break. So then at the time, and this will date myself a little bit,
we're not that far off on dates. So the more you say that, the older I feel.
No doubt. I understand. So you'll remember the big 6 accounting firms, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was the big 6 and they came on campus and they were interviewing in the MBA program. And next thing I knew, I had a couple of offers. I'm like, all right, I'll go work for Pricewaterhouse. So I went and worked for Pricewaterhouse for 1 year, 11 months, and 2 weeks. And I remember that because I needed 2 years to become a CPA, and I couldn't fit it in because then I was going back to law school. I agreed with Pricewaterhouse to stay on the payroll for an incremental 2.5 weeks while I was already in law school so that I can get the 2 years I needed for my CPA credential. And I say all of this because your question was about the path. And as you could see there wasn't a clear path. It was, all right, then I went to law school. And then as I'm in law school, I learned about investment banking. When I started law school, I didn't even know how to spell investment banking. Like, what's an investment banker do? Learned about that in law school. I'm like, oh, this sounds like fun. I graduated. I never practiced law. I went and took the bars for New York and New Jersey. I was like, this is interesting. I interned at a New Jersey law firm. I spent 2 summers in New York law firms. And I realized, not my thing. Just a great profession, but not my thing. I ended up in investment banking, and then life took a whole different twist and turn.
I have not quite the similar story, but I can relate wholeheartedly because it was the same thing with me. You never really had a path, but you had an idea or an inkling of what you wanted to do, and then you kind of chase it. It's not like today where resources are at your fingertips and you just kind of go, all right, well, I've been watching and studying and reading and researching and looking up. It was like, you want to go look something up, you had to go pull out the Dewey Decimal System, get to the right spot, go find the book.
Right.
If the book wasn't there, you had to see, was it taken out or did somebody stick in the wrong spot? So it was a different world. And I think I've learned a lot along the way, and my mindset has changed in different ways through every iteration of my life, which I think is similar to most people.
Yep.
Life is too short, guy, is something that you're really passionate about. It's something that you kind of are hanging your hat on. And not only did you write a book, but you're doing a lot of public speaking. You're really trying to get out there and do some personal branding. What was the impetus of getting to the point that you are now? Was there a life moment, or was it just a culmination of your experiences? Or talk to me a little bit about that moment of creativity where you said, boom, I'm going to do this.
So again, similar to what I said before, life is a series of twists, turns, and accidents, and there wasn't an exact moment. So the Life is Too Short guy is a concept that basically lays out my life philosophy. And had you and I met 5 years ago, I had the same philosophy. You would have met me and you would have said, oh, this guy's pretty high energy. He loves life. He's really positive. Oh my God, I haven't met a more positive guy. But there wasn't a phrase for it. It wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, and I'm the Life is Too Short guy, and here are the principles I live by. It was just my life. And then during COVID, I started working with a new executive coach. I'm a big believer in constant education, getting better. I work with coaches. I was working with a coach. His name is Kevin. And Kevin interviews me in the first call. It's on Zoom during COVID. And then he gives me a couple of personality tests to do. We get back on the Zoom, the second call, and the call starts like this. He's like, dude, you're like the Life is Too Short guy. Everything's rah-rah. Get it done today. It's like, it's pretty cool. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, but I never, it's just who I am. It's not a persona I aspire to be. It's how I live every day. And I never thought about it that way. So then that night I mentioned to my wife, who I'm
So
very...
you never, it's not like you went through these bouts of depression and you're like, I've got to shift my way of thinking. This is part of your fabric.
Correct. So now I wouldn't say I was born this way. I wouldn't say if you met me at 15 years old, I was the exact same person. We evolve, right? It's a series of evolutions through life. And I think I talk about in the book, and I talk about when I get out and I speak before audiences, there were salient moments in my life that certainly had an impact. When I was 10 years old, my dad suddenly had a heart attack. 10 years old, 1984. It was pretty serious. I mean, he went and he had bypass surgery, and that was sort of as a 10-year-old, as I watched him in the hospital for weeks and realizing like, I almost lost my dad. There's no doubt that was a moment. It wasn't the moment. I don't look back and say, as of that day, I was the Life is Too Short guy. I say, as of that experience, at a young age, I began to appreciate life is finite. We don't live forever. I'm blessed that my dad survived as long as he did. And then you fast forward to a couple of other events. My dad did pass away about 20 years ago, and that was a big moment for me. There's no doubt he was fairly young. I was fairly young. It was somewhat unexpected, and that transformed my view on life. My mom passed away about 8 years ago, and there's no doubt that's had a meaningful impact on me. And I was there down in Lower Manhattan on 9/11, and I watched the second plane hit the building. I watched the towers fall, and there's no doubt that had a meaningful impact on me. So those were kind of some of the salient moments that created this concept. But again, had we met 5 years ago, there wouldn't have been, here is the Life is Too Short guy, and here's what I stand for. We would have just met, and hopefully you would have walked away and been like, man, that guy's kind of high energy. He loves life, so on and so forth. So anyway, how the concept came about, Kevin says to me, man, you're like the life is too short guy. And that night I mentioned it to my wife, and I am so incredibly blessed. I've been with my wife now since I'm 16 years old. So there's nobody that knows me, understands me better. And she says to me, she's like, yeah, I've always wanted to write a book. It's one of the things on my list of to-dos, but I never made an effort. It was like, yeah, someday I'm going to write a book. She says to me that night, maybe that's your book concept, Life is Too Short guy. And I look at her like, what the hell would that book be about? What's the Life is Too Short guy? Nobody cares about that. And she knows how to plant the seed and water the seed and let that seed germinate. And over the next couple of months, I started drafting a couple of things before I turned around. I was like, all right, this is a challenge. I'm going to write a book called The Life is Too Short Guy. And it went through many iterations, and it went from a challenge to a passion project. I got really excited about it to where I am today, which is an obsession. I'm now obsessed by the concept, I'm on a mission to make the world happier one smile at a time. I have come to the point in my life where I realize I'm not a big believer that you have one purpose in life. I think we have lots of passions and purposes and things like that. At this point in my life, as I sit here and talk to you, I'm getting energized. I'm excited. I'm like, man, I'm going to spread some of these principles, and somebody listening to this is going to walk away and be like, wow, I could do that. I could live a happier life. And I feel so good when I get out there and I speak. I spoke to an audience in Manhattan last night, and afterwards people came up to me and talked to me about how this happened in their life and this resonated with them. And I'm like, you know what, Scott? I've had a wonderful career and I'm grateful for everything I did. But when I reflect on some of the things I've done in my career, I've moved papers from the left side of my desk to the right side of my desk and then back to the left side sometimes. Now I'm actually impacting people. I'm seeing people that are sending me notes, emails, LinkedIn messages, DMs, whatever, saying, Scott, because of your book, because of me seeing you, I bought an airline ticket to go see my mom. I joined a church choir. I'm learning the piano. These are real examples. I'm starting to write a screenplay of a very good friend who moved down to Texas a long time ago. And I got a group of friends together from college last year. And he's like, I got too much going on. Got the kids, got the family, got the this, got the that, so on and so forth. And I got the rest of the group together. A couple of days before, he calls me up. He's like, White, you and your damn Litzig thing, I can't miss this. I'm coming. And he got on a plane. He came, and he said it was one of the best decisions he made in his life, that he would have really regretted not doing it. So I'm having an impact on people.
So I definitely want to get into the principles, but I got to take a little bit of a step back to your process of writing a book, because I don't know how many people have been through this process, but similar situation, except it wasn't my wife. I was actually at a networking group, and it was shortly after my father passed away. We shared that same story about losing our dads, and my story. My father plays a pretty big impact because of the relationship that we had when I was working in the business, and then the fallout of that relationship, and then the rebuild of that relationship, and then losing him. And I'm telling my story, and it's funny because we're kind of going around and telling, a little bit about who we are and how we've come about. And there's about 10 people in the room, and everyone's sitting back kind of like we are right now, just comfortable in the chairs. And I start my story, and about 6 sentences into the story, I see everybody's body language change. Their elbows go up on the table. They start leaning forward, and it's super engaging. And that was a wow moment for me, especially when one of the members kind of said to me, she says, I'm not saying this for any other reason than I really believe you need to do this. You need to write a book. And that was the seed that got planted for me. Now, my process, I went through a ton of head trash, imposter syndrome. Sure. Who the hell is going to read this? Who am I to write a book? What kind of important stuff do I have that people are even going to want to spend the time or energy or effort to read? What was your process? What were the things that went on in your mind and in your life as you went through idea, seed planted from your wife, to the excitement that you have today?
So I'll even rewind before the seed planted, because it really resonates with something you said, and that I said to you before that I've always wanted to write a book. Always is in, call it, the last 15 years. And it never progressed because I could never figure out what do you know enough about, right? What do you know enough about? You captured it in the essence of imposter syndrome, right? I'm like, well, I've done this, I've done that, I've had some success, but yeah, I'm not an expert in anything. And even if I think I'm an expert, no one else is going to care. So that sat there for a while. And I will tell you, I met someone along the journey who helped me. His name is Eric Custer. And Eric actually runs a publishing company. He published my book ultimately. And I did a call with him after I started to have this idea, this concept. And I said, look, Eric, I'm thinking about 2 books. I'm thinking about 2 ideas. And I started with the place I was most comfortable, the place that I felt like I had a little bit of credibility. I'm like, here, Eric, so here's the deal. I took a company public and I've been running it for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years at the time. I was CEO and chairman of a public company. So I felt like I had some credibility. And we've been recognized a couple of years in a row now as one of the best places to work. I've really focused on building a culture. So, maybe I built something around building a culture, the pillars of a culture. I'd written a couple of articles. And then, Eric, I got this other idea. Life is too short. Live in the moment. Chase your dreams. Enjoy life. Don't waste another minute. And I spoke for another 10 or 15 seconds. He's like, Scott, that's your book. And I'm like, Eric, yeah, I got it. But I'm not an academic, trained psychologist.
The energy, though, is so much different when you talk about one than when you talk about where's the passion really sitting,
You got it. That's what Eric said. Eric's like, yeah, that's great that you build a nice little culture, but man, once you started talking about life is too short, live in the moment, make the most of your dreams. 1, you're talking faster. 2, your eyes lit up, your voice raised. That's your passion. And as I went through the process, there's no doubt, I think the starting is the hardest part. You're like, all right, so what's the first step? And I was actually talking to a guy yesterday that I'm trying to mentor a little bit on writing a book. And he was sort of talking about, how'd you choose your publisher and how'd you choose your route? And I said, Steve, let's not have this conversation. We blocked off 30 minutes for this call, right? After 20 minutes, we're going to hang up and you have 10 free minutes. Just write a sentence, then write a second sentence, then write a paragraph. It all comes down to starting and getting words on paper. We spend, I think, a lot of time planning. This gets back to the career discussion we had before. Well, I'm going to spend 3 years doing this and 5 years doing this. Just go do it. Just go chase the dream.
If you don't do it, you're going to sit in the same spot forever.
Correct.
You know what's interesting? I went through a similar situation where it was, it's almost that writer's block to where, how do you start?
Right.
And the beauty of where we are today with technology is you can go into ChatGPT and just throw up a whole bunch of ideas in terms of I have a book, that idea that I want to write. These are the things that I'm thinking about. I'm having a struggle starting it. Just give me that kindling.
Yep.
So I can start the fire, dry kindling to start the fire with, because without it, I feel like I'm stuck.
No doubt.
Technology is amazing.
100%. But more than anything, just start. And that's not even applicable to a book. Look, you are the consummate entrepreneur, right? And how many times did you sit there like, all right, so what's the plan? What's the strategy? Where do I start? Just start. Jump in. Test it out. Figure it out. We're not going to succeed at everything. There's no doubt about that. And the book journey was twists and turns. And there's no doubt that I started writing for a while. And then I was like, where's this going? I got a bunch of words on paper and I don't know what the common thread is. I don't know how to tie it together. Starting is the hardest part.
Now, was that in your mind at that moment, right? Because you're doing a lot of self-branding. So this personal branding idea, you've taken it from the book, you're speaking about it. You've extended it beyond just this book. Was that the intent when you were writing the book, or what was the?
There was no plan. There was no plan.
Same thing, just kind of start and figure it out as you go.
Correct. The
entrepreneurial mantra.
Yeah, it was
start.
Correct. It was, you always wanted to write a book. All right, fine. You finally have a concept. Let's start writing and see where it goes. And then it took on a life of its own. In part, actually, I shouldn't say in part. Withdraw that statement entirely because it became
True attorney. Withdraw that statement.
There you go.
Stricken from the record.
It became a passion, an obsession, because it was so fun. It was so exciting. Like coming here today and just sitting here and talking with you. Sure, I'm sure I could have come in and we could have talked business strategy. That's fun. We could have talked a little bit about our debits and credits and our EBITDA and all that. But you get me going on life is too short. Live in the moment. Chase your dreams. Smile more. Spend more time with family. Go out and do things that are fun. Think about how you use your minutes. All these concepts that I got excited about. And now when I spread that message, it energizes me. And I truly believe some of your listeners are going to take this away and make some small tweaks, changes in their life.
I think we all go through these moments in our life where we're like, what the fuck are we doing, man? What are we doing? We're working so hard. life is too short. Everybody tells us life is too short.
Right, but you got to
In
believe
certain moments, it's like life is actually not too short. It's very long. But in another perspective, it's life is short. You have to grab the time when you can.
That's it.
And I think we all get excited by that. I don't know anybody who doesn't get excited by the idea of if I could just. And the problem
but
that
they get
I
stuck
see,
there.
they get stuck. And how the fuck do you get unstuck? Especially when you spend years upon years just compounding the same bad habits of not being able to take the time personally. How do you get out of that rut? How do you break free and actually go, all right, I know I just have to start, but how?
There's actually 10 principles for the Life is Too Short guy. I call it LITSIG as an acronym for Life is Too Short guy. LITSIG, very creative. And there are 2 principles that are completely relevant to what you're talking about. The first principle I talk about is minutes matter. And I say to people, minutes matter. I am not an efficiency guru. I'm not going to tell you how to get more minutes out of your day, nor am I going to tell you how to get more out of your minutes. What I want you to step back and really think about is minutes as a different paradigm. What do you mean by that, Scott? Well, so here's what I say to people. When you're born, life expectancy in the US is plus or minus 80 years. 80 years gets you about 42 million minutes. My guess is most of your listeners today are not newborns, nor are they toward the very beginning of life. Let's just make the math easy and say you're 40 plus or minus. Now, if you're more than 40, like I am, you're going to have to adjust the math. But at 40 years old, you have 21 million minutes left, okay? You're going to sleep a third of them. You're down to 14 million minutes. Invariably, you're going to deal with setbacks in life. You're going to deal with health issues. Everyone does, especially later on in life. So you probably lose a couple million productive minutes. They haven't lost minutes, but you can't actually go chase everything you want to. So at 40 years old, again, adjust your own math, you got about 12-ish million minutes left. Okay? Think about it differently. When you're born, you have about 4,000 weeks. Again, at 40 years old, you got about 2,000 left, 2,000 Saturdays and Sundays. All right, Scott, you're throwing a lot of numbers at me. What does all this mean? Here's what I tell people. I say, as you put that in the back of your mind, I want you to picture a barrel. Okay, a barrel. For me, it's a wine barrel. For you, it could be any type of barrel.
Oh, no, that was definitely a wine barrel.
Wine barrel.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Okay, so we both have a wine barrel. He's like, barrel. All right, so we got a wine barrel. So that barrel is the receptacle for our remaining minutes. And picture, and this is a great mental exercise, your minutes sitting in that barrel. So for me, it's gold coins. You could choose whatever analogy you want, but I say think about gold coins. They're finite, they're definable, they're precious. What's the takeaway from this? Twofold. One, you and I have no idea how many gold coins are in that barrel. Could be a lot of gold coins, could be a few gold coins. With that perspective, think about how you use your gold coins. I am not going to tell you what the best choice is for you and those gold coins. Those gold coins for you may very well be sitting around and watching TV all day. That's your choice. What I'm suggesting to you is make sure you're making a finite, definable choice on how you use those gold coins. Second point, we all have leaks in our barrel. Leaks? Yes, leaks in our barrel. So many of us, actually I think all of us, get to the end of the day, the week, the month, the year, and we're like, I'm running as fast as I can. I got lists. I'm crossing things off. I'm chasing things, and I don't even know where the hell the time is going. The point is be deliberate, specific, finite. Think about your minutes and how you use them and make decisions about how you use your minutes.
Well, and I think that most people, you reach into that barrel and you have to take into consideration what you've been using your minutes for.
Yes.
And how much energy that is extracted from you to be able to take that currency and make the most out of it. And you mentioned, so some people it's watching TV. And some moments you're just so exhausted. It's like, you know what? That downtime.
That's fine.
Is the valuable way for you to maybe store up or prepare for when you use the next set of coins in the ways that maybe are changing your life, like getting on a plane and going seeing family.
Correct.
Or going down with the friends to the party, the reunion, or whatever life moment that you've been looking forward to. Because, and I think that people, we hear so much on like social media. It's so much keeping up with the Joneses, what other people are doing. How much of the people that you meet feel like they're already on full tilt, that they don't even use those moments or think about the downtime?
I think so many of us, and that's part of the analogy. It's part of the tool that I'm offering people is that, yeah, I know, but I'm so busy. I got the kids and I got to take care of my parents and I got the job and I got it. I understand.
Now, is that the leak?
The leak is not knowing where you're using your minutes. So you may definitively decide, I need to take care of the kids. They are my most important thing. That's wonderful. You have to make proactive decisions, which, by the way, means you have to make proactive decisions about how you're not going to use your gold coins, right? It's a finite resource. And I think that's what we lose sight of. It gets back to the overarching theme. When you think about the overarching thing of the life is too short guy, it's basically saying that there's an urgency to think about how you're using your minutes and use them in a way that makes you happy. Look, I understand there's certain things, everyone's got to do the laundry, right? I don't know how many people are going to say, oh, I'm going to use my gold coins to get the laundry done. Woohoo! Fantastic.
You know what's funny?
This is a good one for you.
So it was because I was just thinking about conversations that my wife and I have been having. And she had left her job to stay at home. We have our older son has some health issues, and, we've had 3 kids and chasing around, and, my business has taken off in a new direction. And she, we had decided, she started the conversation of, I think I'm going to stay home. But some of her time that she spends at home are those menial tasks. It's doing the laundry, it's doing the dishes. And she left her job and she finds herself doing that. And that really isn't providing her with the life value. And I'm trying to say to her, we'll just outsource that. How do we outsource that?
That could be a deliberate choice.
And the minute I'm thinking about this, you talk about laundry. So let's go. Let's keep going.
It's the gold coins, right? It's the gold coins. You have a finite number of them. So to your point, maybe you save those gold coins for something else and choose the value. You assign a value to those gold coins. The value of those gold coins for me, whatever that is that she wants to do, go to the movies or spend time with friends or whatever. What's the value of hiring someone else so that you could save some of those gold coins? And I think all of us are guilty of getting caught up in the day-to-day, the running around, the blocks on the calendar. Like, all right, I got this at 9, I got this at 9:15, I got this at 10, I got this at 10:30. Step back, think about those gold coins.
So how much of this, maybe it's just my feed, maybe it's my algorithm, right? Everything is about efficiency. It's about greater output. It's about whether that's personal greater output, it's professional greater output, monetary greater output. How do you manage around all of that noise? Because I can only assume that the people that are listening to this, have clued in and are tied into social media to some degree. And I can only assume that maybe a portion of them are influenced in a certain way. How do you reset your mind?
Look, as a starting proposition, I would ask how many gold coins you're using on your social media. And maybe your response back is, well, Scott, that's the highest and best use of my gold coins. That's what makes me the happiest. And that's fine. Again, no judgment. What I ask people to do is I go through the other principles. How are you using your gold coins? So let me go to.
So let's go.
Let me give you another principle. Yeah. Let's talk about another principle that will help illustrate this. So one of my favorite principles that I talk about is can't make it alone. Can't make it alone. What does that mean? The power of social community, the power of being surrounded by people you love, the power of building social networks. I talk a lot about
it takes a village.
The Harvard study. You're familiar with the Harvard study on what makes a good life? Have you heard about this?
Only through you.
Okay.
So let's inform the listener.
Unbelievable study. It started in 1938. It's going on to this day. It's the longest running study on what makes a good life. What makes a good life? So they set out in 1938 to study Harvard sophomores, all males. So the original pool of all participants were males. 1938, 256 Harvard males were selected. And then a few years later, in the early 1940s, 456 Boston area inner city youth were added to this pool of study participants. Since then, the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of the original participants are still part of the study. There are annual physicals, annual psychological assessments, surveys, observations, reams of data. And the pool is a pretty, I want to say somewhat diverse pool. I'm careful saying that because it is predominantly male. But beyond that, you have, so one of the original participants went on to become president of the United States. John F. Kennedy was in the original pool of participants.
Oh, wow. Okay.
4 ran for U.S. Senate. Unfortunately, some died young and lonely. There were alcoholics and others in the pool. Anyway, let's get to the punchline. What is the conclusion of this study? There is no more powerful indicator of long-term happiness and health than the power of your social network. What do you mean by that, Scott? So I love this statistic. So I have fairly recently crossed over the half-century mark. So this one resonates very well with me. Those at age 50 who self-identified as having the strongest social network, not largest social media following, not the number of likes on their posts, strongest social network.
So define that for us.
People they can rely on, people they feel a close association with, people that they know are there for them, people that give them a sense of belonging. Those at 50 that self-identified as having the strongest social network, 30 years later, at age 80, were the physically healthiest, mentally healthiest, and happiest. There was no greater correlation of any variable, including predisposition for certain inherited diseases, to where people were at 50 and their long-term happiness and health at age 80.
So it didn't matter whether they were Harvard graduates or inner city.
Didn't matter.
Boston.
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
And there was a stronger correlation to long-term happiness and health with the self-identification of a strong network than to their current physical condition at age 50, their current mental condition at age 50. It all came down to how strong that social network is.
So this is one of your principles.
This is a key principle. In fact, you get the question about your favorite child, and you're like, well, it depends on what day you ask me. This is my favorite principle. There's no doubt about it, because I think it is so simple and so easy, yet we lose sight of it. So now let's go back to the gold coins and connect this, right? So you were talking about efficiency and working more and getting more done and so on and so forth. What if you deliberately chose a few gold coins, you took them out of the barrel and said, these gold coins are going to be used to strengthen and build my social network. It's important for me to spend time with friends. It's important for me to reach out to a relative I haven't spoken to in a while. It's important for me to join an organization where I resonate and I feel like I belong.
Do you feel that there are moments in people's lives where they lose sight of this? And
absolutely.
Because I just think
100%.
about my own life, right? When my kids were young and we were going through those early ages, our social networks were strong, but as they started to get older, before they were deep into school and deep into sports, we had a huge void. And the void was really like, we were just in survival mode. And then when they started to go to school, then their friends' parents, we started to, build our social networks around their friends' parents.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden it started picking up again. And I feel like the older I'm getting, the more and more conscious I am of my social network and the importance of it. Do you feel that people similarly go through a cycle, or do you feel like there's maybe a different cycle that most people go through? What does it look like?
So what I'd say is that I give you a ton of credit that you're deliberately, thoughtfully, proactively thinking about it. I think we often, as a society, get caught up. We lose sight. Look, we've heard about the epidemic of loneliness, right? We've heard about people being disengaged. We've heard about people spending significantly more time on social media, which doesn't create that same depth of social network.
It's very shallow.
It's very shallow, but that's the escape, right? It's easier. Look, I got hundreds of friends, and I know that Jamie from college is now on her second marriage. Fantastic. Have you called Jamie from college? Have you talked to her? Have you had coffee with her?
No, because you have this false sense that you have a connection.
Correct. I think we as a society are truly facing an epidemic that is easy to cure. What do I mean by that? You have to be thoughtful, deliberate, and proactive. Exactly what you just said. Like, it's brilliant. I mean, Bobby, it's brilliant. You said, I've thought about these different stages, the different things we're doing. I'm being proactive. You may not be the best study participant, but if you think about your broader group, and I don't even mean your media friends, because my guess is your immediate friends kind of look and act like you. But if you think about your family, people you've come across, how many are going out of their way to join organizations, to call friends, to reach out and check on people, to follow up on somebody's sort of where they are in their life, to, I say to people,
I think the common thread is, you know what? We need to do this more often.
We absolutely need to.
It's always
Constantly.
we need to, we should.
Correct.
But the follow through.
But we don't. It's about using those minutes. Correct. It's about using those minutes.
Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and we're saying the same thing because it took us a few years to get back together.
Correct. So I talked before, I gave the example of I got a bunch of my college friends together to come in for, they all came in for a football game, spent the weekend in New Brunswick, so on and so forth. It was wonderful. I've done that in the last year. I organized a golf trip for 12 people in the last year. I brought together 5 couples, and we went out to wine country in the last year. There are 3 examples that I just thought of in the last 12 months where I very deliberately brought people together. I didn't sort of shoot a text, hey, Bobby, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing well. How you doing? Great. Hope you have a great day. I brought people together. We were engaged in deep, meaningful conversation relationships. And by the way, it doesn't have to be dozens of people or hundreds of people. It could be 3 or 4 people that you really invest the time, energy, and resources in. I don't think we as a society are doing that enough. I say to people, so it's February now, right? You came out of January where people crossed over the new year and they had a physical fitness plan, right? They say, this year I'm going to the gym once a week. I'm going to run 100 miles and my goal is to finish a half marathon. Got it. Some people crossed the threshold of the new year and had a nutrition plan. I'm going to cut back on my alcohol. I'm going to cut back on my sugar, and I'm going to get my
January, whatever.
Right. How many of your friends did you talk to about a social plan? They said, this year I'm going to reach out to boom, 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 boom. I'm going to plan X, Y, Z. How many?
Honestly,
none.
Only the people that I work with. And it was built around business and business creation and evolving relationships. And it was focused on their professional life, not on their.
So I gave this, I've been traveling around the country giving talks, and I gave a talk a couple of months ago to a company. And at the end, I'd say a mid to late 20s gentleman comes up to me and he's like, that was wonderful. I took away a lot. I just want to apologize to you. I'm like, really? He's like, you probably saw me on my phone a lot. I don't want you to think I was disengaged. It really resonated with me what you said about being proactive on building relationships. And I got 5 guys together and we're going bowling. It's brilliant. Like,
dude, in the minute, in the moment.
Right. So as you're listening to this right now, your listeners listen to this today. Make a decision.
Push pause.
To reach out to somebody.
Push pause and collect 5.
That's it.
Grab your favorite 5 friends and just boom, do it.
You're going to a movie. You're going to do something fun. It doesn't even have to be anything extravagant. You can go grab coffee. When was the last time you just reached out to a couple of friends? And now this gets back to the question you asked before about efficiency, being on hyperdrive, running. Stop. All right? Stop. Push pause. I think that's a great analogy. I'm going to steal that from you. Just, push pause. And instead of trying to make 6 more business calls today, instead of trying to make whatever it is, again, no judgment, whatever you're doing today, make a deliberate, you know what? I'm going to reach out to my brother. I'm going to reach out to my cousin. I'm going to reach out to my neighbor. See if my neighbor wants to come over for a drink. This is what we need more of as a society. And this is a key foundational element to living a happier life. Think about how much, again, going back to the Harvard study, the most important indicator of long-term happiness and health is the power of the social network. Think about how powerful that is and how easy it is. And by the way, how fun it is, right? So you talked about dry January, which by the way, may be fun for people. And you talk about going to the gym, which I love to go to the gym. So it's fun for people, but hanging out and having fun with friends, who doesn't like to do that?
That's fun.
That's fun. By definition, that's fun. And if it's not, you got the wrong friends.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, I think we just get caught up with our own shit. And,
Correct.
And I think part of, we hear this also from different areas, and from the sense of you need to take a step back in order to really appreciate how you're moving forward. And I think enough of us know it, but we don't necessarily
Correct.
take those actions.
Correct.
How much more efficient, how much more clarity, how much more zeal or zest for life are you going to have?
That's it.
If you just fucking push the pause button for 5 minutes, collect some friends,
That's
go
it.
and do something.
That is the point of my mission. So when you think about the book, am I speaking right now, is to give people, so everything I talk about, and I could run through almost everything in about 5 minutes, smile more, spend more time with friends, take more chances, think about how you use your minutes. These are all simple concepts. In fact, as you're listening to this, you're like, he's telling me to reach out to my friends, but we don't do it. We need that reminder. We need that kick in the head to be like, again, going back to the concept of life is too short. If God forbid you find out that, I really should reach out to Jim and I haven't talked to him in a while. And then all of a sudden Jim dies. Jim is stricken with some major illness. You have a major setback and you never get around to it. That's why today is the day to do it.
What gets you out of a funk? What if somebody's in a funk and they're like, I know that the first step is just do it, but is there more to it? Is there maybe a process that they can bring themselves through? Is there something that you've kind of talked through in your talks to work somebody through whatever hurdles that they've put in front of them that they just don't seem to get them out of their way and move forward?
Yeah. So I'll be careful because people are at various stages of their own mental health, and I am not a professional mental health
No,
expert.
I'm saying from like excuses in a way and things that are
here's
just
what I'd say. There are a couple of simple things, right? I mean, if you really are in a deep funk, then you're listening to this and you're like, well, look, that's just not going to work for me. However, we all go through various stages. Like I often get the question, like, are you always all excited, fired up, smiling, enjoying life? No. I mean, I spend a lot of time there, but that's not human nature. If I were to tell you I'm the happiest guy you've ever met 24/7, you should throw the credibility bullshit flag, right? I mean, it's just not reality. So what do? I think about easy, small things. Smile. There it is. It happens every time. So I
For
do
those
that.
of you that aren't watching, he gave me a dead stare until I smiled.
I do that all the time. So when I speak, this happens 100% of the time, including last night. I say to the audience, smile. People look at me like, they look around and then they're like, do I smile? Am I supposed to smile? And then they smile. And I say, now think for 1 second. How'd you just feel a second ago? Your body produces endorphins and dopamine when you smile, and by the natural chemical reactions, you're up to 25% happier just from smiling. So I say to people, think about how often you smile. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't hurt. When I get in my car and I leave here today, I'm literally going to smile at myself because I'm going to feel better about it. And when I walk in the door and I get home later, I'm going to smile. My wife's going to say, how'd it go? I'm like, it was awesome. Bobby's a great host. This is great. I'm going to smile. Now, to your point, I may be dealing with some things. That smiling is a small tweak, a small tool to set me in the right direction. Here's another tool that I talk to people about a lot that I absolutely love. It seems so simple. And when you hear it, you're like, yeah, okay. What was your first thought when you opened your eyes this morning?
Should I start my car and warm it up, or do I just get my stretch in and cold start it when my son's ready to go to school?
Perfect.
I swear to God, that was my first thought.
Look, it's perfect. So when I ask people, I'd say about 50, 60% of the time people don't remember. And most of the time I get something like that. I call it blurry glasses. Here's what I tell people. I say, tomorrow morning, this is such an easy exercise. Just humor me. Even if you don't believe me, try it.
I'm going to try it.
So try it. So I think a lot of people put on what I call the blurry glass in the morning. So I want you tomorrow to literally reach over to your nightstand. And if you have glasses, put them on. If you don't, put on pretend glasses. And I'm holding up little pretend glasses over my eyes. I think most people put on blurry glasses, which is exactly what you just said. They open their eyes in the morning and they say, I'm tired.
This hurts.
No, those are worse. Those are worse. Wait, we'll get there. This is the benign, nondescript. I'm tired. I have to go to the bathroom. I need coffee. Okay. Some people, unfortunately, put on what you just talked about, which I call blurry glasses. This is, you can't see through them. It's dark. It's cold. I'm tired. I'm not getting out of bed. It's February. I hate the winter. I hate my life. Why not? It costs nothing. This morning, I reached over. I grabbed my crystal clear glasses, bright glasses, and I started my day dead serious like this. It's 6 o'clock. The light is starting to come up. The sun is shining. I'm in bed next to the woman I love. There's a roof over my head. My kids are doing great. I have a chance to go on Bobby's show today and talk to his audience. I am 10 seconds into the day, and I've proactively rattled off 5 or 6 things. Like Henry Ford said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Why not set the roadmap for the day? I understand you can't control everything that happens. You may put on those glasses and be like, this is the best day of my life. I'm so excited. I can't wait. You step out of bed, you twist your ankle, and next thing you know, you're going to the emergency room. I understand that. You can't control everything. You can control your perspective. Choose your attitude. Knowing it is one of the key principles of Litzig, and set the tone right for the day.
It's kind of like positive affirmations. It's kind of like, setting the stage and programming yourself to believe what the day is.
Correct.
Except in a less hokey way.
Correct.
For those people that say, I don't believe in that hokey shit, affirmations. It's all bullshit, blah, 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 blah. No, what you're saying is essentially that, except less hokey.
Correct. And it's so simple, right? It's just literally, I would go through the physical motion of reaching over and putting on what feel like glasses and whatever it is. Like I can think of a million things. This morning, I'm going to go for a run. That's fantastic. Tonight, I'm going out to dinner with great friends. That's fantastic. I have a chance. I'm going to see one of my daughters this weekend. That's fantastic. I'm actually flying out to Europe next week. Look at that. It didn't look, how hard did I just think about the 4 or 5 things to set the tone right for the day? Again, if you get up with those muddy glasses and you start the day, it's cold, it's dark, life sucks, I'm tired, I don't feel like getting out of bed. How are you setting yourself up for the roadmap for the day, where you're going? Why do that? It costs you nothing to think about what you're happy and grateful for the minute you open your eyes and set the tone for where you're going.
And I can only assume that, for somebody who wants to try that tomorrow, why not think about it before you go to sleep and put your list
Of course.
together. Like, get a little prepared and see what the difference is for your day, right? I mean, that's not a heavy lift.
Look,
Big
I
ask.
talk about doing this all the time, right? So 2 of the principles are attitude is everything, the power of positivity, and choose your attitude and own it. And I give different tools for each of them. But to me, the easiest one to explain, so that's a mindset, right? It's a mindset shift. And for some people, I think it's going to take time. You got to put a stake in the ground. Where do you start? And part of what I talk a lot about, which you've figured out by now, is these principles are so easy, right? You're looking at me like, he's telling me to smile and wake up and be happy and grateful for what I have and call some friends. It's not that complicated, but that's the whole point. That's what gets me excited is if somebody's listening to this and literally right now they smile for a few seconds and they feel better. Think about what a better world we'd have if everyone would smile a little bit more, if everyone today would commit to reaching out to a friend, if everyone would try waking up and starting their day with a positive attitude, it would be an entirely different world we'd live in.
You know, I just kind of bring this back to you go to like a seminar, right? And it's something that maybe is right down Broadway for you in your profession. And the speaker up there is talking about things that you're intimately familiar with, but that you still find yourself jotting a few things down, knowing exactly that's what you need to do. But
Correct.
It's like the reminder of, yeah, no, I knew I need to do that, but this is just a reminder that I just have to fucking do it.
Correct.
And,
Correct.
you know, I think that's very similar with you.
100%.
This is just, you got to be a little bit more in just direct connection with yourself and your intentions so that this way you could be happier. You could make more connections with your social network. You could be a little bit more focused on understanding that life is too short and using your currency in a way that's going to be more valuable and for your life, for the people around you.
And you can live a longer and happier life. So people with a positive attitude have a 77% lower risk of high blood pressure, a 50% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's, a 13% lower risk of death from any cause, and positive thinkers love this one. This is the one thing you're going to remember at the end of the day. Positive thinkers live on average 7.5 years longer.
Boom, longevity.
Right? I mean, 7.5 years longer.
The power of positivity.
Just from thinking about smiling, just from waking, like, even if when I said it, you're like, what am I doing? I'm opening my eyes and I'm thinking about what a great life I have. Like 7.5 years longer of life for positive thinkers.
So I went through a bunch of years of where things that got very difficult. And the difficult was the stresses of life, of business. Business was doing well, but the fear of taking a step back. It was everything, like a culmination of everything. And I kind of took a really big leap. And, you know, I started to look at my mindfulness, trying to figure out like a spirituality, the thing that I need to be chasing. Like, what do I need to do to just recenter? Because I am so off tilt, like in the wrong direction. And mindfulness and positive affirmations are one of those things that I started to say, you know what, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to journal. I'm going to write out what I'm grateful for. I'm going to put the 3 most important things that I need to do for the day. I was so shocked at how much better my perspective was. But I fell off and I went back into my normal rut. Should say rut, my normal routine. And then I went my normal routine. I'm like, why do I feel like shit? Then I went back to that positive. Let me just try to get back to some of these things. It is so hard sometimes.
It is.
Because you just tend to lean toward what is more comfortable.
Sure.
Which sometimes when you feel better, it's not as comfortable because you spent so much time in, I don't know if it's just replicating over and over, you know, Groundhog Day, living it, and it just became so normalized for you. What do you see that as? So
there's no doubt there's a human nature to focus on the negativity. We have a negativity bias, and there's certain, I think, theories around evolution and survival that's associated with the negativity bias. There's no question about that. I also think that we live in a society now where, you know, you talked before about your social media feed, and we think about the political environment where we are constantly bombarded with negative thoughts, with negativity, with divisiveness. It's just it's the default setting. So you need to be deliberate and proactive in how you approach life. And that's this mission that I'm on, is to give people simple tools. So when I set out to do this and write the book, by design, it's not a deep academic book. This is not I'm going to throw out everything I've done in my life and be a new person tomorrow, because that's just not reality. We revert back to the norm. So what I try to do, and I gave you and your listeners a few of those, and I can give you more, is little tweaks, little changes. It's not hard to remember to smile. It changes your life. I'm telling you, if you spend time thinking about it, literally, when I leave here today and you go back to your desk and you're like, man, that guy was all over the place. He is super high energy. And you just smile for a second, you'll feel better. And when you're walking out to your car and you pass somebody in the parking lot today, you smile, they smile back at you, you'll feel better. We talked about the importance of reaching out to friends. It's such an easy concept, right? I mean, it doesn't take that much effort. And you could sit down literally and write out a plan. Okay, once a week, I'm going to make a call. Once a month, I'm going to handwrite a note card. Once, whatever. I mean, I can give you a whole bunch of different examples that are so simple. It's not like you need a massive system to build your social network. It's just about being thoughtful, deliberate, and proactive in how you approach life. And hopefully you take away a greater sense of happiness, a greater sense of health. I talked about the longevity benefits, and hopefully we as a society become a better functioning, happier place to live. You know, I read something recently that just blows my mind. We as Americans are more unhappy than we've been in the last half century. 50 years, think about that. We are at the greatest time in the evolution of society. Yes, you can be critical about lots of things, but if you think about the advances in health and in science and where we are as a society, and I think we live in the greatest country in the world,
And
certainly among the best.
Where do you or that study, what's the conclusion of why?
It gets right back to what I said. We live in a society where there's a negativity bias and it gets amplified by social media, by technology, by divisiveness, you know, the ease with which. So if you're to rewind 20 or 30 years ago, you were influenced by the people most directly around you. Now you could hop on and be influenced by some extreme group without making any sort of judgments here, that all of a sudden you get in this death spiral. And then you could spend all day on social media creating a world in which everything is horrible, instead of taking time, energy, and resources to smile, to laugh, to build relationships, to take chances, to chase your passion. Like, these are the principles that I'm trying to encourage people to think about.
Get around that fear of the unknown of what's going to happen tomorrow, and
Take a
really
chance.
just embrace what you're doing today and how you're going to, you know, focus on you
That's it.
and the people that are directly impacted by you.
And living your best life. Think about how you're going to use your minutes. Take a chance and get it done today is another principle that we haven't talked yet about. It's a very entrepreneurial type principle of where I talk about, you know, people get caught up in the yes buts. You know, I want to start a business. I want to start a relationship. I want to go on a vacation. Let's keep this really simple. But then but it's expensive. Yes, but I don't have the time. Yes, but I don't know where to start. Yes, but I may fail. Yes, but I may. You got to stop the yes buts. Take that chance. Get over that initial hump. Look, we all deal with fear and risk, and it would be intellectually dishonest for me to sit here and say, overcome the fear and risk, because that's just not reality. It's not human nature. What I tell people is to reframe fear and risk through a different lens. It's all about the lens through which you view the world. You can't eliminate fear and risk, but instead of immediately assuming that new job, that new relationship, that new hobby is going to end in failure, embarrassment, whatever the case may be, I give people an acronym. For fear, I say, let's focus entirely on an alternative response, FEAR.
Yep.
Focus entirely on an alternative response instead of just assuming it's going to end poorly. For risk, let's resist our instinct and start with knowledge. Let's make a real assessment of what could go wrong, what may go wrong, what about what could go right? What's the probability of success? How bad is it if it doesn't work out? Let's get over the yes buts, not get stuck in the yes buts. Take a chance and get it done today. One of the principles.
Yeah, and I think that really just holds more people back than really anything.
Correct.
I mean, I just all of a sudden I'm just running through a list of people in my minds that, you know, we've had these conversations where we talk about starting that new business or starting that new phase of your life, and people are so apprehensive, and it's all emotional. It's not logic. And even when you try to work through some of the emotional, it's almost like getting somebody to change. We just had a guest on. Actually, I just remembered about Dr. Gustavo, who's a psychologist. And he says, how many psychologists does it take to change the light bulb? The answer, 1. But it's really the light bulb that has to want to change itself first. Right? So many people, they have to want to change.
Correct.
Right? So, getting through that emotional response, how do you get through that as a person is probably all individual.
No doubt, but you got to take a chance and get it done today. So I mentioned this in the book and I talk about it. Bronnie Ware is a palliative care nurse from Australia who wrote a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I asked people, what do you think the biggest regret people have on their deathbed? And everyone knows and they've heard already, no one is ever regretting that they didn't make enough money, and no one's ever regretting they didn't work hard enough. That's not new. What is kind of interesting is that among the top regrets, usually people aren't regretting something they did or said, which is kind of a little shocking if you think about it. When you think about the regrets over the course of your life, maybe you did something dumb, you said something dumb, you whatever. The biggest regret people have on their deathbed is the regret of what they did not do. Think about that. Think about how powerful that is as a sentence. The biggest regret people have on their deathbed is the regret of what they did not do. So don't wait until it's too late, until the end. Every day, the clock ticks by. Again, let's go back to the analogy of the gold coins. How are you using your gold coins? At some point, you'll be physically incapable of doing whatever that is. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be business. There could be some relationship, some hobby, some vacation, there's so many things we all dream about. We're all dreamers one way or the other. Chase the dream, get over the fear and risk, eliminate the yes buts, and don't get to the end of life and regret what you did not do.
Well, I don't think that there is a better place to end than on that sentiment. And I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate, the hour that we've spent together. And I love everything that you have shared with me and shared with the group. And how do we find you?
So the easiest thing is probably the website, lifeistooshortguy.com. Lifeistooshortguy.com. You can find out about the book. You could find out about my speaking engagements. I am out now touring the country, speaking to teams, to companies, to conferences, to schools. And if this message resonates with you, I'd love for you to reach out and see if we could arrange something.
Books on Amazon?
Books on Amazon.
That's where I got it.
Awesome.
All right, brother. Well, listen, thank you for coming. Appreciate
a lot of fun.
You.
High energy. Thank you so much. Go out and live your best life.
Yeah, baby.